Alrighty, we are learning Yoma. We are Daf Tazayin Tazayin Amid Beis, and we are on the but. We begin on the bottom of Tazayin Amid Aleph. So we Gemara just got finished explaining. We had a Sira and two Mishnayos, a Mishnah in Tamid and a Mishnah in Middos. And the way the Gemara answered that was by saying that the Tana of Middos is Elazar ben Yaakov, and therefore he doesn't. He's not like the Tana of Tamid, and it's machlokes. That is what we learned until now. Okay, and now we are going to another Gemara proved from two ways that the Tana of Midas is Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. One from a Mishnah, where in the middle of Mishnah, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, Shachachti mahayisa mishameshes. So that was one. And then we brought another raya from a few Mishnayos that explain a saying. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov held that the Kaisel Mizrahi had to be lower in order for the surface, the kind that's the surface of part, to be able to see inside. So we showed how the Mishnayos and Midas align to such or Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov's opinion aligns with the Mishnayos and Midas to say that, because he held that there was an extra amma of height in elevation because of the duchen, and therefore you would, if you opened up all the doors from the Shar of Har Bayis all the way into the Azara, you would not be able to see through because there would be a half amma too high. A discrepancy. Okay, that's what we did until here. Now we are on the bottom, the second to last line in Tazayin Amud Aleph, Rav Adabar Ahava. Now we're going to explain. Rashi has two ways to learn this Gemara. We're going to read it the first time the way Rashi does on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Okay, so if you turn to Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph for a minute, in the end of the first Rashi, which is about 2, 4, 6, five lines down in the wide lines in Rashi. Or the end of the line before that, the end of the fourth that line down in the wide lines. Rashi says, "V'chol hasugya b'loshen acher." I'm sorry, go back to the beginning of the line. I apologize. Ube'einai nira. To me, it appears lefarish hadar v'ada bar ava v'chol hasugya b'loshen acher. Okay, Rashi says that after explaining it for the whole Amid, he says, I really think that there's another way to learn this Gemara, and that is that Rav Ada bar Ava is coming to explain Hamani Amasnisin de Tamid. He's coming to say that I'm going to prove that the Tana, meaning till now we were saying that we were proving that the Tana of Midos was Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. And that's why there's a discrepancy between Tamid and Midas. Rav Adabar Ahava is going to answer, that the Tana of Tamid is Rabbi Yehuda. That's what he wants to prove. Mm-hmm. And Rabbi Yehuda argues on the stomach of Midas. And we're going to show how Rabbi Yehuda argues on the stomach of Midas. Okay, so let's learn the Gemara that way first, and then we'll come back and we'll do it the second way. So Amar Rav Adabar Ahava Amar Homani, who is the Tana in Midas, the Mishnah that we started this whole thing with? That said Amar Lamar, he told him to bring a telef and Lishkas Beis Hatlayim, and he held that the Lishkas Hatlayim was in the Tzefainis Maravis of the Beis Hamakid, as opposed to the Mishnah in Tamid that said that it was in the Maravis Dramus. Okay, so who is the Tana of Tamid? Homani Rabbi Yehudi. You know how I know this? The Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Hamizbeach memutza v'oimid be'emtza azara." The Mizbeach was in the center of the azara. Ushloishim ushtayim amas hayu loy. The Mizbeach itself was 32 amas. So therefore, Eser amas was keneged pischai shel hechel. 10 amas were opposite the opening of the Heichel in the Azara. If you have a graphic. Okay, so here we have the Mizbeach, here we have the Heichel. So here's the opening of the Heichel. So he held that the Mizbeach was in the center of this opening, right in the center. Okay, so there was 10 amas in the center, and then now I had another 22 amas to go, 11 on each side. So he said, "Esra amas can I get pischa shalechel? Yud aleph ama letzafin, yud aleph ama ledarim. 11 amas to the north and 11 amas to the south. Nimsa mizbeach mechuven keneged heichel ukesalav." So it comes out that the mizbeach was mamish opposite. You have to, this opening here was 20 amas wide, right? So the mizbeach sat in the center of it, and then there had another 5 amas in each direction to close it up, and then you had 6 amas going along the wall on each side. Okay, that's Rebbe Yehuda's opinion. Clearly not like this diagram. Okay, but this is Rebbe Yehuda's opinion. Okay, so how do you see that this is not like the stomach of Middos? This is Rebbe Yehuda and you want to say that Rebbe Yehuda is the Tan of Tamid because he argues on the stomach of Middos. Why? Because what does it say? There it says, "V'isa kadaydach Middos Rebbe Yehuda." If you were to think that the Tana of Middos was Rebbe Yehuda, so then Mizbeach be'emtza azar b'mishkachasli. Could you have the Mizbeach being in the center of the Azara? It's not going to work out. Now we're going to bring a Mishnah in Middos that you will see clearly cannot work out according to Rebbe Yehuda. Okay, now this Mishnah in Middos is going to describe what is going on in the length and width of the Azara, of this section, this section of the Beis Hamikdash, not this section, but this section. Okay, here we go. But tonight we looked at a Mishnah. Kol ha'azara. The Azara here refers to not the Ezus Nashim, but the area of the Ezus Yisrael, the Ezus Kainim, and the Heichal, and the Kadesh HaKadosh. That whole area till the end, till the Kaisel Maravi, which is of the Beis Hamikdash, not our Kaisel Maravi. Okay, says the Gemara. Vatanan. Kol Azara Haisa Oyrech Mea Ushmoinim V'Sheva. The length of that Azara was 187 al Reichev by a width of Mea Ushleishim V'Chamesh. So it was 187 long and 135 wide. If you remember, the Ezus Nashim was 135 by 135. So now we have an additional 187 in length, but the width stays the same as 135. Okay. Now, Min Mizrach L'Ma'ariv. If we're going to go, okay. Min Mizrach L'Ma'ariv, if we're going to go from east to west. So it's Mea Ushmayna V'Sheva. So it's 187. Now let's work it out. Here we go. Makam Drisas Ragla Yisrael, the place where what we call the Ezis Yisrael, place where the Yisrael Elam were allowed to walk, was Yud Aleph Amma, 11 Amas. Okay. You want to keep Cheshbon? 187 minus 11.
176.
Okay. Makam Drisas Ragla Kehanim, the Kehanim had another 11 Amas. We're down to 165. Okay. Mizbeach was Shleishim Ushtayim. The Mizbeach itself was 32 amas. It's actually 32 by 32. So another 32 amas.
133.
133. Bein ha'ulam ulam Mizbeach, between the ulam and the Mizbeach over here, this area here between the ulam and the Mizbeach was 22.
111.
Okay. The Heichel was 100 from here to the end of the Kodesh HaKadoshim was 100, and that leaves us off with Vel Yud Aleph Amma. There were 11 Amas Achuri Beis HaKaperes behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Okay, that worked out nicely. Now let's go the other way. Min Adarim L'Tzafin, Darim to Tzafin. So that's working this way. And this is Darim. We're walking towards the Tzafin. Okay, Darim to Tzafin. So we're gonna go. Okay, so we got like this. It was Mea Ushleishim V'Chamesh 135. Now Hakeves v'Hamizbeach. Notice what we missed. We're gonna come back to this. We did not start with the space between the wall and the keves. We left that out. Okay, we started with the keves to the end of the Mizbeach. Is going to be 62. The ramp is 30, and the Mizbeach is 32. So that gives us 32. Shishim v'shayim. Min ha-Mizbeach ul-tabais, between the Mizbeach and the rings, was ches amas. That was 8 amas. So if we're counting down, let's go again. From 135, we take off, subtract 62.
That's 73.
Okay, and then another 8.
65.
65. So that's the tabais. What were these tabais for? So there are kaddish, kadashim, karbanis, or kaddish, kadashim needed to be shechted in the tzafan of the Mizbeach. Those rings were there to put the neck of the animal under the rings to be able to shech the animal. Okay, that's what the tabais were for. Now, the tabais themselves, makam tabais, was esrim va'arba, took up 24 amas. So we're down to 41. Minat tabais l'shulchanas, between the rings and the shulchanas, the tables where they would take out, they'd cut up the animals, take out whatever they had to take out from, was arba, 4 amas. We're down to 37. Minat shulchanas l'nanasin, between the tables and the nanasin. What were the nanasin? They were pillars that were in the ground that they would put poles across. That way they were able to hang the animal on to be able to skin it. Okay? So that was another 4 amas. 33. Okay. Minanas and Lakaisel Azara, and then from the end of those pillars till the wall of the Azara was ches amas, 8.
Now 25.
Oh, left with 25. The Hamoiser bein hakeves ulakaisel umakim hananasin. Whatever was left over, you're gonna have you'll use that space between the Durham wall and the kevas, and how much space do they actually have for these pillars that were in the ground to skin the animal. Okay, now we don't know how much space that is or how to divide it. So let's assume if the Tana doesn't tell us anything, so we'll have to divide it evenly. So that's going to give us how much? 25. So 25 is divided in half is going to give us 12 and a half. Okay, so now let's make a cheshbon. So if we're going to go from Durham Wall to the end of the Mizbeach, is going to give us, we had already 62 plus 12 and a half. 74 and a half. Correct? Now, where is the middle of the Azara? 135 divided by 2 is going to give us 72 and a half. No, less than that. 63 and a half.
No.
67 and a half.
Right.
67 and a half. Okay? 67 and a half is going to be the middle. Now, is the Mizbeach in the middle? According to our cheshbon, is the Mizbeach in the middle of the Azara? Clearly not, because there's only another, 7 amas? 67 and a half. We got up to 73 and a half. Right?
6 amas up.
So 6 amas left. That means most of the Mizbeach is in the Durham, not in the middle. So says the Gemara, the Isa Kadaitach Midas Rabbi Yehudahi. If you're going to tell me that the Tana of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda and Midas, Mizbeach be'emtza Azara mi mishkachasle, could this Mishnah end up telling you that the Azara is in the middle of the that the Mizbeach is in the middle of it? Haruba the Mizbeach b'Durham kai. Most of the Mizbeach is in the south. Ella must be Ella Shmamina period. Don't read the rest of it. Don't read Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. Ella Shmamina that the Tana of Middos is not Rabbi Yehuda. The Tana of Tamid is Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore if I have a machlokes between the Middos and Tamid, it's not a stira because they're two different Tanaim, and we see that Rabbi Yehuda argues on the stomach of Middos. Okay, that's first way to learn this Gemara, and it works out very nicely. The only issue we have is that we have to erase a couple words on top of Yud Zayin, which really wouldn't be our issue for today. That would have to be tomorrow's issue. But we're going to discuss that also. Rashi brings another way to learn the Gemara. So we turn back to Tes Zayin Amud Aleph. Here we go. Let's take a look at the Rashi. Rav Ada bar Ahava Omar Homani, who is the Tana? So he says like this. Let's get back into the flow of the Gemara. The Gemara just got finished saying, I will prove to you that Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov is the Tana of Midas. And how do we prove it? Because he, according to him, you'd have to have the Kaisel Mizrahi being lower. Because if Kaisel Mizrahi is not going to be lower, then there's no way you'd be able to see. There was no way for the kohen that served the parah to be able to see into the heichel, because you wouldn't be aligned. You'd be off by a half amma. Okay, because he adds the amma for the duchen. Great. That's what we said until now. Comes along Rav Ada bar Ahava and says, it's not true. It's possible that the Tana would be the Tana of Midas could be Reb Yehuda. You know why? Because Reb Yehuda would also require the Kaisel Mizrahi to be lower, but for a different reason. Because according to Reb Yehuda, he has the Mizbeach being in the middle of the Azara, and if the Mizbeach is in the middle of the Azara, then there's no way to see through it. The Mizbeach is going to be blocking your view. So he could be. It's shaykh for him to be the Tana of this Mishnah. He could be the Tana of Midas. And on that, the Gemara is going to prove wrong that the Tana of Midas holds that the Mizbeach is not in the center, it's off center, therefore the Tana is not. For a different reason, it can't be the Rabbi Yehuda can't be the Tana of Midas. Okay, that's how the Gemara is going to work according to him. Let's see the Rashi. Rav Ada bar Ahava Amar Hamani. Hamani diktani the Kaisel Mizrachi Hutzach Lias Namach. You know what? I can find a different Tana who holds that the Kaisel Mizrachi needs to be lower down. And who would that be? That would be Rabbi Yehudi. The Amar HaMizbeach Oimid Be'emtza Hazar Keneged HaPsachim. The Mizbeach stands in the middle of the Azara opposite the Psachim. V'nemtza Goivoi Soisim Es Pesach HaTachten. And it will come out that its height actually blocks the blocks you from being able to see into the opening. Shari Ola Karka Ezras Yisrael Mikarka Tachtain Yurgel Malama. Let's make the cheshbon. The Ezras Yisrael is elevated 13 and a half amas from the bottom of Har Bayis. Koidim Shagil Zmech, before you reach the Mizbeach, it's already elevated. The Mizbeach Gavei the Mizbeach itself is 9 amas high. So Harei Eser Mishtayim V'chetzi. So if the Mizbeach is in the center of the Azara, it's going to be blocking the view of someone being able to see in. And therefore you'd have to hold that the Kaisel Mizrahi was lower. Okay. And to the Gemara goes and says like this. One second. The Gemara is going to go. The Gemara disproves like this, and it says, one second. The Midas Rabbi Yehudi. If you're going to think that Rabbi Midas is Rabbi Yehuda, and you're going to assume that because he also holds that the Kaisel Mizrahi is lower, because otherwise he won't be able to see into the Heichal. The Gemara says, "Vatnai we learned in a Mishnah," and in the Mishnah, if we make the cheshbonos like we did in the Mishnah, the Mizbeach is not centered, and even more than that, because of the way the Mizbeach is going to be situated, there would actually be, this is the kicker, the way the Mizbeach is situated, according to the Mishnah in Midas, there would actually be a sliver of airspace that you'd be able to see through. Because let's say we made the cheshbon, so the cheshbon gets a little bit different. That's why Rashi doesn't like it so much. The cheshbon is a little bit different. I'll tell you the cheshbon. The cheshbon ends up being based on the bottom, where we said umoiser. How much was left over? So the cheshbon we made was that from Daram to Tzafan, so we had 62 amas was the Mizbeach. We weren't sure how much we had, right? From our cheshbon, we had 25 amas left over, which we weren't sure how to divide up. So we just divided it 12 and a half from the wall to the keves, and then the other 12 and a half we gave to the space for the amudim. But Rashi says it a little differently, and him and Yashi goes through a few different renditions of it. But he ended up having. Let's go with that cheshbon for a minute. If we went with that cheshbon, so how much is the Mizbeach sticking out? We said it was going to go 73, right? 62 plus 12 and a half brought us to 73 and a half, correct? And the halfway point was 67 and a half. Okay, how wide though is the opening? Right, the opening itself is going to be the opening. This opening is 20 amas. This one's 20. This one's 10. So if this is jutting out 73 and a half, it's got to make the cheshbon of how many more amas do you get to move over? You get to be if 67 and a half is the middle.
Right. I think we said it was 6 off.
It was 6 off of the center. So does that cover? Is that going to close the gap? So you got to figure out this question for a second. How much? Go ahead and make that. How do you make that question? One second. If it's going to be, how open is it going to be? It's going to be. Well, if the middle is 67 and a half. So that means if I go 5 amas in either direction, right, that'll close the middle one, or 10 amas in either direction will close it. So if this is sticking out another 6 amas, so then it's going to be closing the gap by an amma. Okay, so it's going to close the gap by an amma, but. You ready? Listen to this one. All right. I mean, the Mizbeach, if you hold like Rabbi Yehuda, is going to be past the halfway mark of this gate by an amma. But when we counted 32 amas, we counted from the bottom of the Mizbeach.
Right.
You know that it goes in twice. The Yesod goes in an amma, and then the amma sikra goes in. That means at the top of the Mizbeach, it's only 30 amas. Which would mean that we would actually have an we'd be able to move. We'd have an amma of space in between the mizbeach and the. We have an amma of a gap of an amma between the top part of the mizbeach and this shar, this wall. That means if you're standing here and you're looking on the side, there's a space for you to see through. So there'd be no reason for Rabbi Yehuda to say that the Kaisel Mizrachi needs to be lower, because according to his cheshbon, he'd be able to see through. Okay, good job. Tomorrow. Not tomorrow, on Shabbos.
Have a good Shabbos.